In this video, we will take a look at recording and saving an Excel macro. A macro is an automated input sequence that imitates keystrokes or mouse actions. A macro is typically used to replace a repetitive series of keyboard and mouse actions. Let's take a look at how to record an Excel macro. Before you begin, it's important to have Developer on your menu bar. If you don't have Developer on your menu bar, go to File, Options. On the left-hand side, go to Customize Ribbon. On the right-hand side, for Customize the Ribbon, make sure you have a check next to Developer. Click OK, and Developer will be added to your menu bar. Once you click on Developer, you'll notice that you now have in your code section a Record Macro button. Let's click on the Record Macro, and it's asking us for a name for this macro, and we'll call it Bernard Baruch. No spaces. You can put in an underscore or a dash. Shortcut key that we can use to run this macro when we are finished. If we simply type in a letter of a keyboard and that keyboard has a equivalent letter such as Control B or Control Z or Control U, it will conflict with Windows. Therefore, it's a good idea to hold down the Shift key on your keyboard. In this case, we have Control Shift B, and we're going to store our macro in this workbook. We click OK. At this time, everything we do is being recorded. In fact, the stop recording is now being shown. We're going to go to cell J7, and we're going to type in Bernard. We're going to go to K7, type in Manus, and we're going to go to L7 and type in Baruch. We hit enter, and we are back to J8, and now we're going to make some editing changes to these cells. The first thing we're going to do is in J7, let's make that bold. So we'll go to Home, we'll click on Bold. We're going to make it a size 16 font size. We will make this auto-fit so it fills up the entire column so we can see Bernard. In K7, we're going to auto-fill this in yellow. We're going to make sure it's italicized and underlined. In L7, we're going to change the font, and we'll change that to Book Antiqua. And then we're going to change that to a blue font color, and we'll center that. At this time, we made some changes that were all being recorded in our macro. At this time, we can stop our macro, and we do that by simply going back to Developer and choosing the Stop Recording button, or we can go down and click on the button at the bottom, which will also stop the recording. We now stop the recording, and now we can go anywhere on our spreadsheet, and using the keyboard Control, Shift, and the letter B, it will actually do exactly what we had asked it in the first place, typing in Bernard, typing in the Manus, typing in Baruch, and making the editing changes. However, it wasn't very clear that that was done since the information was already in those cells. So if we take out the information in those cells, and in this case we have a yellow background that we want to get rid of the fill, so a quick way is to simply use the Format Painter, and I can remove that using a cell formatting that does not have that autofill. Now we want to test the macro. Control, Shift, and B. And there it is. It does exactly what we asked it to do. An action that we are able to automate using our keyboard. Another way in doing this is to let's say we remove again our formatting that we had prior to that. We can go to Developer. We can go to Macros. It will list all of our macros, and we can click Run, and it will also execute the macro if you forget the actual keys that you use to record that macro. At this time, we'd like to save our macro. We can go to File, Save As, and save it in the location that you would like to on your particular computer, wherever that may be. And we can just save it anywhere that you find a place. And we have to give it a name. So we're going to give this a name of Bernard Baruch macro. And you don't need the word macro, but it's just something that I like to put in so I know that this particular workbook has a macro included. But the important thing you need to do is to save it as type Excel macro enabled workbook. Excel macro enabled workbook. It must have the XLSM extension. Once you save it, it now changes it to XLSM, and that means the macro is included in this particular workbook. If you forget to do this, you will not be able to run the macro, and you will not have the macro included in your particular workbook. So therefore, it's important that if you record a macro, to make sure it is saved as a macro-enabled workbook with the extension XLSM.